for Fannie Bay.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to contribute to the Minister for Mining and Energy's report to the Assembly on the dire state of the NT electricity system. I speak on behalf of every Territorian who has been left behind by the chaos, mismanagement and delusion that defined the former Labor government's energy policy. We all know the truth. Labor promised lower power prices, cleaner energy and reliable supply. Instead, they delivered blackouts, budget blowouts and prices that soar beyond the reach of working families and small businesses. Madam Speaker, as a Territorian, the dire state of our electricity system deeply concerns me. But as the member for Fannie Bay, it alarms me. In Fannie Bay, there's been over 200 outages between 2016 and 2024, 200 outages. When we came into government, the Territory had been left with an electricity system that, quite frankly, could keel over at any second and is significantly costing us in the process. Labor did not put in the necessary plans in place to fix the Territory's old and inefficient energy infrastructure, and they've failed to secure our energy future. Madam Speaker, on the other hand, this CLP government has been proactive when it comes to keeping the lights on for Territorians and dealing with Labor's energy failures. The electricity reform package we'll be debating in Parliament this week is another Labor mess that we're acting on and mopping up. Madam Speaker, the cost to Territorians has been absurd. In the current financial year, the Territory's budget has had to swallow a $51 million increase in our community service obligations, or CSOs as they're commonly known. CSOs are government subsidies that reduce Territorians' energy bills by about 50%. If it wasn't for our government CSOs, households would be paying approximately $1,700 more for their energy bill. For business, it would be approximately $3,900 more. To maintain this level of support, the CLP Whanokēʻaere government, its first budget, has allocated $192 million so that Territorians don't have to dig so deep into their pockets. Madam Speaker, the savings our government make for Territorians on their energy bills are proportional to the cost of this energy. In other words, the lower the cost to generate energy, the lower the cost passed on to Territorians, and the less our government has to subsidise costs. As a result, there is no doubt that the cost of energy generation and the level of our government has had to subsidise this cost is impacted by our ageing infrastructure. Madam Speaker, most people know I grew up in Alice Springs. The Ron Goodin power station is at the end of its life and cannot be extended anymore. It's an old, unreliable system that has led to chronic blackouts and means our government has had to pick up the slack under Labor's poor plan for our failing electricity system. Madam Speaker, Labor in power from the year 2000 through to the year 2024, with the exception of a small stint between 2012 and 16. That's 20 of the last 25 years, Madam Speaker. And Labor dare to blame this new government for the damage they caused. Shame on them. Another significant reason that our CSO has skyrocketed is due to emergency gas costs. Madam Speaker, the escalation in cost for emergency gas comes from poor planning. With the Beetaloo on our doorstep and gas companies knocking on our door to come take advantage of this gas, the price of gas and the impact of their energy bills should be the least of Territorians' concerns. However, Madam Speaker, bad planning on Labor's part has meant that our government has had to buy emergency gas, outside the cheap gas we should be receiving under our gas supply arrangements. In addition to this, instead of focusing on unlocking the cheap, abundant gas we have here in the Territory, Labor were focused on, well, we're not actually sure what they were focused on. Not sure they were focused on anything. Labor's poor attempt to invest in our electricity system and to right their wrongs led to the bungle investment in solar. The utility farms at Manton Dam, Bachelor and Catherine, built under Labor, sat there for years until our government came into power and finally allowed them to dispatch electricity to the grid. Madam Speaker, Labor may have been aiming for 50% renewables, but instead they only managed to dispatch 15% solar-generated electricity. Our government is not anti-solar and it's not anti-renewables, but we are anti-energy that drives up costs for Territorians and doesn't contribute to improving our failing electricity system. This CLP government is taking an energetic, agnostic approach so that we can use the necessary means, whether that's gas or solar, to keep the lights on for Territorians. With the risk of our CSO and Territorians' bills skyrocketing, our government can't get 𝒦𝒊𝒄𝒊𝒄𝒊𝒕𝒚 online fast enough. And when we do invest in renewables like solar, it'll be part of a well-orchestrated system-wide plan. Madam Speaker, in addition to getting our energy mix right for the Territory and at the right price, this CLP government is delivering an electricity market reform package that will continue to drive down costs for Territorians and for the Territory. Until the CLP came into power, the Territory's energy system was left to its own devices, and Territorians had to pay for this disorganisation ever since. The reforms we're progressing consist of centralising our system control in 𝒍𝒆, spinning this unit out of power. Sorry, Madam Speaker, I'll repeat this sentence. The reforms we're progressing consist of centralising our system control in 𝒍𝒆, spinning this unit out of Power and Water Corporation and into its own independent body. We're modernising the changing way of our electricity market and how it operates by giving 𝒍𝒆 the mandate to implement a coordinated, regulated electricity system investment plan. Madam Speaker, I did attend the briefing that was provided by the Minister, and I can tell you how much of a difference this is going to make in ensuring that the GOCs, or government-owned corporations, stay in their respective lanes. These reforms are going to allow for true competitiveness, providing a level procurement playing field for all the GOCs and private investors to compete for projects that our energy system actually needs. Madam Speaker, a centralised procurement process brings more players to the NT's electricity market, with the ability to provide cheaper capital, lowering our costs and reducing the amount Territorians have to foot the bill for. Madam Speaker, with the dire state of the Territory's electricity system, these reforms have been a long time coming. However, they've been even longer under the Labor, which set them back in motion in 2020. Clearly, Labor knew these reforms were important. If they weren't, they wouldn't have started them. However, under Labor, Territorians got inaction for their energy future. And this government is making these reforms a reality and getting on with the job as part of our year of action. Our government knows that over the forward estimates, CSOs will continue to be part of our budget, and it's a price we're willing to pay to keep the electricity prices low for Territorians. Under Labor, the Northern Territory's electricity market became a case study in failure. They shut down efficient gas generation while throwing millions at experimental projects that could never deliver baseload power. They buried industry in regulation. They scared off private investment, and they pushed a reckless agenda that chased headlines rather than delivering results. Households are paying the price. Electricity bills have exploded. Businesses are struggling to stay open, and regional communities who once relied on affordable energy to sustain jobs and opportunity are being left in the dark, literally and figuratively. The legacy of this Labor's grand energy experiment, ideology over practicality, slogans over solutions, and politics above the people they were elected to serve. Madam Speaker, the Territory cannot afford another decade of this neglect, and that's why this government has a clear disciplined plan to restore affordable, reliable, and confidence in the power system. Every dollar wasted on red tape is a dollar stolen from Territory households. So we're putting it back, right at the heart of our energy's future. The Northern Territory has abundant natural resources. Labor chose to leave them in the ground. We will not. We will responsibly harness them to ensure the stable power supply and bring down costs through common sense and competition, and we're restoring trust in the market. We will open the field to innovation, encourage investment, and ensure that every provider competes to deliver the best deal for the consumer, not the bureaucrat. Finally, Madam Speaker, we're giving power back to the people. This government believes that local organisations like councils and regional communities should have the tools to develop their own energy solutions, microgrids, hybrid solutions and small-scale gas developments that deliver real resilience and independence. The difference between us and Labor is simple. We believe in practicality, in enterprise and the ability of Territorians to chart their own future. Labor believed in control, in bureaucracy and enforcing ideology where innovation should have led. Madam Speaker, we would have loved to have come into government and not found that every time we turned around, we found another mess, another empty promise, another underfunded project, another message that had no substance. So our mission is clear, is to clean up their mess. We will rebuild confidence in the system and make the Northern Territory the powerhouse that it should have always been. Madam Speaker, the time for excuses is over. The time for results has arrived. and this government will deliver for Territorians. Thank you.